Michigan is 5-0 and hasn't, for even a second, been challenged this season. Thanks in large part due to the nation's 112th ranked schedule thus far. They lead the nation in defensive points allowed per drive, and because they play a 2.5 game schedule, depending on your opinion of traveling to Maryland in November, we really don't have a clue who Michigan is. Are they definitely great, probably great, good but not great, or a September sweetie?
Michigan is definitely great.
Wow, okay.
They are definitely great. And I am fed up with some of the negative press that I have seen out there because the schedule has been weak. I have been preaching at the altar of your schedule does not matter with respect to how good of a team you actually are since the Boise State days of Jared Zabransky. All right. The schedule can be, to some extent, completely decoupled from the actual quality of the team. And that's where Michigan is at so far this season. You are right to point out they have played effectively nobody. East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, and Rutgers.
And something called a Nebraska. Yeah.
And something called a Nebraska. Thank you. Far be it for me to leave them out of this as well. But Michigan has done nothing but be pretty much dominant. They have had their moments where they've started slowly, but by and large, it has been crockpotting after crockpotting for the Michigan Wolverines. And once they've actually had a chance to get their rhythm in a game, it has been all over. I like what I have seen from this team across the board. I think they've done a good job taking care of business and blowing out the teams that they should. Of course, everybody would like to see more points all the time, but I don't think that's necessarily a measure that I care about in this conversation. If I'm looking for anything for Michigan to improve upon, some of the line stats aren't great. Like some of the line stats could be better. They have given up a fair amount of pressure thus far to opposing defensive lines. The run blocking has probably not been as great as it can be, but I think by and large, this is a veteran team with a ton back from a year ago, predicated around the ground game, and it is still the team to beat in the Big Ten. Ohio State has some weakness. Penn State definitely has some weakness. You mentioned Maryland. If you want to talk about Maryland, Maryland definitely has some weakness along the lines as well. Michigan is a sure thing, in my view. That's why I picked them to be the national champion at the start of the year. And I have seen nothing thus far that has talked me off of that point. So I'm all in on Michigan. I remain all in on Michigan. This is definitely a great team.
If there is a definitely great team in college football or grouping of definitely great teams, I think I agree with you that Michigan is definitely great relative to the rest of the sport. And everybody seems to have flaws, and Michigan's flaw is that they haven't played on a stage yet. And so we really don't have accurate data on Michigan. And so right now, I would look at Michigan and say, okay, are there winter wonders, right? Are there receivers come the playoff, come the Big Ten championship game, come the Ohio State game? That's a place where, they lost some key talent to, the NFL or transfer or whatever. And then also JJ McCarthy's dependability. He's already had a multi-pick game this year, and I'm not going to say Michigan lost the game against TCU because of JJ McCarthy's. He had 2 pick sixes. Did he not?
Yeah.
If memory serves. Maybe you can look that up and fact check me. But that's the thing that I'm kind of waiting on is big game JJ. And so I'm going to say definitely great because where the secondary is, where the defense is, they haven't allowed double digits this year, which to me is not a question of their opponents, but that's a focus thing, right? That there is 60 minutes of great defense being played, even if it's the threes in there. So that to me is an extreme positive for Michigan and can only beat who's on your schedule. Right now, there's nobody on their schedule, and it's a tougher November, certainly, but also relative to, as you mentioned, the Ohio State offense early on in those key moments, and they looked better on those 3rd and longs against Notre Dame, but they needed all of those 60 minutes to beat Notre Dame, and Penn State's offense, and as talented as Drew Aller appears to be, a lot of shorter stuff from this Penn State offense.
The play calling is very suspect at this point.
Right. And
on
so
the Penn State side. And
those two teams are working in new quarterbacks. Michigan has the advantage of experience at quarterback, experience on offense, continuity in ways that Penn State and Ohio State don't have. So in conclusion, definitely great for me.